Hello, everyone. Welcome to the How to Chess podcast. We are, of course, a weekly chess improvement focused podcast. We try to give you a few tips to help your game. And this week, we're joined by a Chessable author, the founder of the Chess Central's blog. He's FIDE rated about 2175, but stronger at Blitz, as we will discuss. He was an electrical engineer by training turned publishing manager at Chessable, and he is quite a strong Blitz player with 2,600 ratings on both chess.com and Lichess. And what we're going to talk about today is a fitting topic: the good, the bad, the ugly of Blitz chess. So before we dive into the topic, of course, I'd like to welcome him to the show. Vjekoslav Nemec, how are you, Vjeko?
Oh, hi, Ben, and hi, guys. Thank you for having me here. And I'm excited to talk about the demons and the good and bad sides of Blitz.
Yes, yeah. And as a longtime reader of your blog and someone who follows you on Twitter, we've definitely sort of seen the ups and downs. But it'll be good for you to share your experience, as I'm sure we can all learn through your gains and suffering. So the first question for you, Vjeko, is what to you constitutes a good Blitz player?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. I mean, obviously, a good Blitz player is obviously a strong chess player. That kind of goes without saying. But it's not only that, in my opinion, because there are quite a few examples, which I think maybe I can be included, of people who are like not that strong in terms of pure classical chess, but they are devilishly strong in Blitz chess. I think the Russian player Genrikh Chepukaitis is a perfect example. So he was international master, but among the best Blitz players in the world. So yeah, apart from pure chess skill, I mean, speed is a very big important element of a good Blitz player. And I think knowledge of their own systems, like resourcefulness and familiarity with their openings, their systems. I think it's no coincidence that good Blitz players have their pet systems and specifically tailored Blitz opening repertoire. And also then there is like, I think good intuition and quickness in spotting tactical motifs, which is something that all good Blitz and also bullet players are excel at. So yeah, a combination of those factors, I would say.
Okay, already a long list of things to get good at, to be good at Blitz, but that makes sense. And maybe before we go on with like some tips about how to do that, we should sort of step back a bit and try to establish who should be playing Blitz, because both on the How to Chess podcast and on the Perpetual Chess podcast, different trainers and titled players give different advice about like how productive Blitz can be. Do you have an opinion, or maybe you could talk about your own experience, Vjeko? Like, at what point in a chess player's development, around what rating do you feel that Blitz can really start to be not a total waste of time?
Well, if we talk purely from the, let's say, productivity / how useful Blitz is for your game, I would say that, I mean, usually the less you do it, the better. But I mean, if we are talking about, let's say, getting something out of it, it's a tricky question, but I would put the line somewhere between maybe 1,700 to 2,000 FIDE. Okay, that's a broad range, but it depends. But my point is, let's not complete beginners and not and maybe somewhere on the intermediate level, people can start to get something out of Blitz, because I think in order to get something out of Blitz, you need to analyze those Blitz games. And usually what I have noticed, like through working through my students, is that sometimes people on lower levels have trouble approaching the analysis of their own games in the best way. And that also, I think, reflects in Blitz games. So I would say that some strength in order to get something out of Blitz is required. But like I mean, ideally, if the question is whether you can put that time into more productive use anyway, that probably it's better to avoid it completely altogether. Although, I mean, Blitz is fun, and then again, if you want to have fun, that's also a perfect tool.
Yeah, it's a very good point. We're not here to tell you guys how to spend your time. Blitz is a lot of fun, and I think that's the primary reason I play it. That's why Vjeko has come back so much over the years to it, as we'll discuss. But if you're like a working mom or dad with a very finite amount of time and you're trying to get good bang for your buck, then as Vjeko says, especially if you're rated, say, below FIDE 1,700, something like that, or that strength, if you're an online player, then Blitz might not be the best use of your time. Now, I want to go back to something you said about openings. You said a lot of strong Blitz players have narrow, sort of specialized repertoires, and that's something where I think Blitz can be helpful. So what's your approach been in terms of how you play, how you manage your Blitz repertoire, and what you try to take from each Blitz game?
Well, I wouldn't say that I have had a particular Blitz repertoire. I would just say, so my main opening with black for years have been the Modern Defense, which is G6 almost against everything.
Which, of course, is your Chessable course, we should say.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that this opening is somewhat rare and somewhat, let's say, many people who study something with white, they don't study it that well. And then for Blitz, it's perfect. Like and almost for any online play, when people don't prepare for it, it works perfectly, especially when there is short time control, because people then don't have a little time to figure it out over the board. But as we have said, the good and the bad, the ugly, the downside of that was that I have gotten used to playing it for years, and then I never studied anything else properly. And when it kind of came to over-the-board chess, it caused me problems, because in over-the-board chess, people can prepare, and Modern is somewhat tricky or dubious opening, and then it's good sides when it comes to Blitz, and its trickiness in Blitz didn't reflect over the board. So this is one example also how Blitz can harm your classical chess, because you get used to getting away with things and playing not so good openings, and don't put effort into learning maybe something more mainstream.
That makes sense. And I understand that this has led to a break in Blitz for you.
Yeah, I haven't played for last year, because I have been trying to put more focus on the classical chess and actually training chess. And I have been playing, when I play chess, I try to play longer time control games with increment. But that's only part of it. The other part of it, because I used to have an unhealthy relationship with Blitz. So not once. So first of all, I have noticed that I often used Blitz as an escape when I was anxious or when something was bothering me. I would play much more Blitz than necessary. It was kind of an addiction / escapism problem. And not once did I go on a long all-nighter where I would play hundreds of Blitz games from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. and then go to work next day. That was back in the electrical engineering company. And as much as it did good sometimes for my Blitz overall, because I played a lot and then got a lot of practice, that feeling at 7 a.m., it's not a good feeling. And I decided that ultimately I have to make some change, because it's not good for me. Not to mention that there was a lot of anger and resentment toward myself, toward my opponents, toward everybody. So yeah, it can be a tricky road very, very quickly. So that's why I stopped, among other things. But also because of the chess improvement things.
Yeah, I can certainly relate. For me, Blitz is not quite as addictive as Bullet. So I've had one or two, a handful of nights in my life like that. Probably not staying up all night, but certainly staying up a few hours later, and suddenly you become obsessed with some rating milestone that's totally meaningless in the grand scheme of things. But at that moment, it feels very important, and you can ignore the things that actually matter in life. So Vjeko, I have to ask, did you try moderation? When you're an addict, you can either just quit something or you can try to moderate it. And it sounds like you ultimately decided on just straight up abstaining in order to live a healthier life. But did you have a period where you only tried to play a little bit or tried to set clear boundaries for yourself with Blitz?
Yep, didn't work. That was weird. I sound like a child, but I try to say, and I would actually recommend to anybody, that's a good tip. If you are playing Blitz, try to make it, try to play either limited hours of day or limited number of games. And also, we haven't mentioned it. There are differences between playing Blitz and playing Blitz with increment. So 3+0, that's what I've been specialized, quote unquote, is a completely different ball game because of all the flagging involved than to Blitz with increment. But I've tried moderating it. But if I, for example, if I set certain milestone, and then my obsession was with online ratings. And then, for example, if I would play 5 games and on the 5th game I would drop between certain number that on that day it seemed acceptable, I would have to continue until I get back. So it didn't quite work for me somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be challenging for sure. Well, I'm glad to hear that, like, again, like mental health and, having the proper priorities is more important than whatever someone's blitz rating is. But nonetheless, we still want to get better, Vieko. So you got to
Yeah.
give us a few tips. So my first question is sort of, what is your approach to clock management? I've heard people like Daniel Naroditsky say you should never spend more than 15 seconds on a given move. People have different approaches in terms of like how willing they are to fall behind on the clock compared to their opponent. What's your approach?
Well, I haven't actually never consciously thought about it, but yeah, I think for clock management in particular, knowledge of the opening is very, very, or knowledge of ideas in the opening, so to speak, is very important, because even if, for example, you play a theoretically inferior move, if you have a clear idea of what you will do, and if it is inferior because of some complicated sequence, the chances is that your opponents won't get away, will not punish it, and you will get away. So my strategy was always to kind of pre-move the opening basically for the first 10-15 moves, and then you kind of already accumulate a significant advantage on the clock. And yeah, later, I mean, yeah, like sometimes you obviously catch yourself in deep things, but the approach is okay. Like if you see an intuitive move and you can calculate it, well, just make it. So move first, think later is generally useful. Yes, sometimes you will lose a game or two or three because of it, but more often than not, especially if you're playing 3+0, which I do, it pays off in over the large sample of games. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So some great advice there, Vjeko. Do you have any other tips you could impart? We're almost out of time here, but any
Yeah.
sort of other general tips you could give for improving one's blitz game?
Yeah, do a lot of fast tactics, because intuition and spotting ideas is more important than actual calculation. Like seeing one or two moves, even if it does confuse, is important. To do a lot of tactics and play some opening that you really, really know well, like even if it's not objectively correct, and don't spend too much time in the opening for sure. And like if you're playing 3+0, get a good mouse, and try try to convert positions simply, because I often see people in blitz trying to find the absolute maximalistic approach and, I don't know, win in brilliant fashion. But I think, when you have 30 seconds and you have to practice converting those positions seamlessly, because that's where a lot of blitz games is decided, in my opinion. It comes with practice, but also with some conscious thinking and effort if your goal is pure blitz. But once again, all these tips sometimes have, like, if you don't practice calculation, then you will not calculate in longer games. It might be good for blitz, but it may backfire in longer classical controls. So yeah, it's always a danger. Yeah.
That's interesting. Maybe we'll take that to a bonus segment. We can talk about sort of the adjustments you've made for your classical game. But one last thing on the blitz, you mentioned conversion. Shout out to Aim Chess. They tell me that's a weakness of mine. So, and I'm sure I'm not alone. So, is that something? It sounds like a big part of your secret sauce is just you put in, tens of thousands of blitz games. But is conversion something that you actively practice, or just something you feel like you've gotten better because you've had so many reps?
Yeah. I mean, you've gotten better, but sometimes, like, it's important. I mean, what I took away from my blitz games, but one again, that's probably the reason why it worked for blitz, is when I lose, I kind of check why I didn't win. And I have one position why I didn't win, and how I could have improved that. So sometimes that even amounts, like, for example, if it's time scramble, it sometimes even accounts to, okay, I tried to convert, but actually it would have been better to play inferior moves or some checks to win on time, which, once again, one of the problems I have in my classical games nowadays is actually converting positions, because I've gotten into a habit of not being accurate in conversion, but just trying to either confuse the opponent or win on time, but yeah, those kinds of things are things where you can do a mental conscious adjustment when playing blitz and saying, okay, let me just, he pre-moves something, let me just make a move that makes him spend 3 additional seconds on the clock, because I prevent. Like, for example, if the king is on g2 and he moves king g2, king g1, I will play rook g1 so that he can't pre-move king g1, and like those
dirty tricks. It's all part of the game. And that makes me think, in bullet chess, I've noticed, again, try not to play it very much, but I've noticed that often it can be a burden if you're the one with a winning position, because you're the one trying to actually make a plan and do something, whereas the person losing has the freedom to just like instantly move, which can actually lead to flagging the person. So we'll leave it there, and then I'm going to sum up what we've learned so far, Vjeko. This has been great, and then I want to hear a little bit about how you've transitioned to classical training.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. All right, so I got to find a pen, and then we're going to do like 3 highlights, which there's plenty to draw from. That was great.
I had a feeling that we barely scratched the surface, and we basically said people don't play Blitz. I kind of didn't formulate it the way I wanted, but yeah.
I mean, I think it was very good, but if there's anything you want to restate, we could do it. But I can't think of anything.
No, I mean, we could nitpick maybe the utility of Blitz, but I guess if we restate at the end that this is not really a plea to people not to play Blitz, but just to think how they play it, and yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, I think I'm ready. I'm going with know your openings, and it's okay to have a special repertoire, quick tactics training, and don't always try to play the best move.
Yeah, that's a good approach. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And we are back with our 3 improvement takes away. I'll try that again. And we are back with our 3 improvement takeaways. And in this case, they are Blitz improvement takeaways. And the number one thing that I think that I learned from Vjeko is just the importance of knowing your openings inside and out. And as the author of the One Everything G6 course on Chessable, of course, it makes sense that he can get a huge leg up having put the work in to make that course. And again, as he mentioned, it's an opening that a lot of people haven't specifically studied. So it can give a big edge, both on the clock and in terms of knowing the structure that come from it. And it's not, and as Vjeko himself concedes, it's not the best objective opening, but for the purpose of Blitz, it gives him a competitive advantage. Number 2 is quick tactics training, which again makes sense. You're not looking to unearth some brilliant 12 move combination. You're looking for tricky moves, even if something might not be objectively great, but it's challenging for your opponent to face. It can be a good thing to play, and by training your quick tactics, you'll at least have the idea, and then whether you're sure it works or not, you can put your opponent to the test, especially if you're playing without increment, as Vjeko has done, although he doesn't necessarily advocate if you're working on your classical game. Number 3, I found super helpful is don't always try to play the best move, especially as he mentioned, it can be late in a time scramble. Even if you have the advantage on the board, that doesn't mean you need to be trying to actually win on the board. You can just put your opponent in check, catch them off guard, try to make a threat that they have to respond to, or at least just keep the clock moving, just get the ball back in their court. So these are the dirty truths of Blitz, which is a dirty business at times. So I'm very grateful to Vjeko for sharing a few of his tips, but now I'd like to welcome him back and talk a little bit about how he transitions to classical training. So Vjeko, you found this wasn't helping your slow game. So what are you trying to do to help your slow game?
Well, I'm not playing Blitz. No, I'm. So yeah, I mean, there are many adjustments, and I have to be honest. Like my classical, even though I have been working, has not been really improving as of yet. At least on in the terms of rating. So, but what I'm doing, I'm trying to do a lot of calculation exercise, but actually not quick calculation exercise, but the good old school solving with pen and paper and actually trying to see the lines. So in order to actually go deeper than what you do when you just play Blitz, I'm playing longer training games online and not only Blitz and Bullet and not Blitz. I'm trying to study some more correct openings, if you will, in particular Najdorf and Grufeld with black. So actually putting way in general, I'm putting way more time in studying, not only playing. And I'm very trying to be careful about how I study it. And when I play always with increment in order to get rid of some of these problems. And when I'm playing, one of the things that was very problematic for me was impulsiveness, which was also a result of my natural character and as well as a lot of habits developed by playing Blitz. So I have butchered and lost many games because I played move instantly, which is some good in Blitz but bad in classical. So I try to make conscious effort during the games not to do that, and it's hard, but I'm getting there.
Glad to hear.
And many other things, of course, but that's just from the top of my head.
Yeah, already a lot to follow up on there. First of all, the MVL repertoire, the Grunfeld and the Najdorf, that's serious business. That'll keep you busy alone with all the time you're saving by not playing Blitz.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also want to follow up on calculation exercises because people always are curious, like which courses or books to study. So which have you been working on, Vjeko?
Well, actually, I have started working with a coach, and he has been providing me with like a weekly set of exercises each week. So that's what I do. But I think basically almost every solid book, like one of my favorite books was this Csaba Balogh book, where he compiled highlights from games from that year. So there was a puzzle book from top level games that were played, I think, in 2019 and stuff. Classical, all Agar's books are pretty good. Woodpecker Method is good. Encyclopedia of chess combinations, soon coming on Chessable, is also good. So,
cool! Yeah, that's a classic. Yeah.
There's a lot of this, and usually, if you go with a classic book, you can't go wrong. But even if you just navigate through a certain game, and try to navigate to some complicated position, then try to do calculation, it works. But there is a difference, in my opinion, between tactical training, where you kind of have a position and white to win, black to win, or let's say calculation training, where you have a complicated position where you have to navigate it, but it's not necessarily leading to some decisive advantage. So there are different ways you can do it, but so far I'm doing like more hardcore, just white to play and win, black to play and win, often divided by tactical teams.
Okay. Again, a lot of good insights there. And I think my last question, Vjeko, you mentioned training games. So someone like you with like a Blitz background, when you play a training game, what time control do you gravitate towards?
So recently I played a lot of 10+0.
Okay. So that's still pretty fast.
Yes, that's fast, and it's also bad because it still doesn't have increment. It doesn't have. It still has flagging involved. But now I reached my milestone there, so I think my coach told me to play 15+15 at the very least. So that and it's better to play one game like that in a week than 10+0 games or something. So if we are talking purely from the productivity viewpoint, it's not nearly as fun, and it's kind of demanding sometimes. But that's okay. What I've been trying to do.
All right. Well, good luck with the OTB grind, Vjeko, and any chance we'll see you back in the Blitz streets? Do you think there's a comeback in your future at some undetermined date in the future?
Well, I actually have an anonymous account, which I was used to practice some of these openings. So it's not all that bad. And but then I got that to 2600 as well and stopped. So maybe a third account, or I will sacrifice one of these so that numbers don't have to be at 2600 all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can all hope for that enlightenment at some point in our life, but it's tough to not fixate on the round numbers. And in yours case, it's an impressive round number. So thanks for sharing your insights, Vjeko. And thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for letting me vent my frustrations, and good luck, everybody. It was great being here.
Excellent. Good note to end on. Thank you, Vjeko.
Bye.
Bye.